Hi beautiful people, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, feel welcomed and kindly consider subscribing. Let's get into it. Okay, so right here I have my pattern paper, so I'm just going to measure to mark in my vertical measurement, and the first measurement I'm marking is my shoulder to bust measurement and my shoulder to under bust point. Then the last measurement I'm marking is the full length of my bralette or 3-part corset, whatever. Yeah, I'm going ahead to extend these points into straight lines, so I'm just drawing in straight lines the way you see me doing here. You also want to mark in your shoulder measurement divided by 2. Mine is 7.5, so I'm just marking the 7.5, then I'm adding half an inch seam allowance. Now right here I'm marking my armhole depth. The armhole depth is the armhole circumference divided by 2. That's how you get the armhole depth. Okay, then I'm just reconfirming if it's the exact measurement that I marked on the top, so that I can get a straight line before joining it like this with my ruler. From this point where my line stopped, I'm going to draw another straight line going out like this. I'm basically squaring out, so this is how it is looking. Then I'm just slanting my shoulder by 1 inch because our shoulders are not entirely straight, guys, so that's why we are always coming down by 1 inch. Then that is me placing in my neck measurement, though that is not necessary for this particular tutorial, but I just want you to understand better. That's why I'm putting in my neckline. Remember to slant your shoulder where we step down by 1 inch. Just connect this to the tip of your neck. Then on this new armhole, I'm going to find my midpoint, then I'm going in with half an inch. Then I'll just connect this point to the very top, to the top part of my shoulder before going in with a curve in at the lower part. Okay, so at this point, mark your bust circumference, then divide that measurement by 4. Okay, the bust circumference, what you get, you're going to divide it by 4, then place the measurement on this bust point. So now transfer the same measurement on the top line, on the chest line, this line that we squared out earlier. Okay, now from on this same chest line, I'm going to add 1.5 inch seam allowance. We just basically doing this so that I can know where my armhole is going to end, because without these points I won't know where my armhole is going to stop. So this is acting as a guideline for me to know where my armhole stops. Okay, at this point I'm taking my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, then I'm marking that on the bust point, under bust point, and on the waistline. Then I'll just join this with a straight line. This line is what will help me create my dart. So from the bust point, I'm going to go down by 1 inch. Then on the waistline, I'm going out by half an inch on both sides. Then I'll just be connecting these points to form my dart. When that was done, I'm just taking my bust point to under bust point. Okay, the 3 inches. The measurement you have from your bust to your under bust, then I'm going to take to mark this all round to form my bust circumference. You can see the bust circumference has already formed. Now on this, from this side of the dart, from this line on this other side, you're going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then from this line that forms the other dart, you're going to go out by 1/2 inch again, from this point to this point. Okay, yeah, so after going out with 1/2 inch, you're just connecting this to the dart legs that we created earlier at the bottom of our pattern, at the base of our pattern. Okay. Okay, so now what you're going to do, you're going to connect these new points to the point where our dart started with curves. Okay, you're not doing this with a straight line, you're going to do it with a curve. If you have a curved rule, go ahead and use it, but because our girl here doesn't have a curved ruler, I'm going in with my pencil, then I'll just be bolding that out with my mark pen, the way you see me doing. Moving on, go to your shoulder, get that measurement that you have here, then divide it by 2 to get the midpoint. So just mark the midpoint and connect this midpoint to the point to this point where you see me connecting. Okay, connect these 2 points like this, yeah, like that. Now while standing on this line facing the side front, you're going to mark 1.5 inch, okay, from this line that we just created. Then from the same line, you're going to mark 3/4 inch in facing the center front line. Okay, 1.5 on the other side that's forming this, that's facing the side front, while 3/4 inch on this other side that's facing the center front line. Okay, now you're going to connect these points the way you see me doing, the way you see me connecting here. Yeah, then I'll move ahead to my bust point and I'm going to go up by 1 inch from the bust point. From this line of the bust point, I went up by 1 inch, and from this point I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then I'll just square this line out like this. Now basically going to connect this curve point that I just formed. I'm going to connect it with this dart leg, at the top and the dart leg at the bottom. I think you can see how I've carved in with my pencil. Just look closely at what I've done. So this is how I've carved. Then I'm just going to carve again with my mark pen so that you can see clearly. Now on this other side, you remember the point you marked while marking your bust circumference divided by 4, when you had not added the seam allowance yet. That point that's on the chest line. So you're going to connect the dart leg at the top to that point, then you're going to join that point to the dart leg at the bottom, the way I'm doing. Okay, now from the top part, I'll be marking 1.5 inches deep from the top, from the very top of this cup. I'll just be marking 1.5 inch all through to the other side, because I saw this photo that you are following, the upper part is so thin, so I think 1.5 will just work out the best. So mark that and connect it all through with your curves if you have them. If you don't have them, just use my technique, because it's good. Go in first with your pencil, then bold it out with your mark pen. Beautiful. Now just marking here some points that will help me know I'm supposed to join this to this top part. So I'm just writing in that this is my number 1 and this is my number 1B, just to help me while I'm sticking them together not to interchange the patterns. Then I'm just marking the lower parts, because once you interchange these things, guys, you will lose the whole pattern. Okay, then I'm just indicating where the lower parts should be facing. Yeah. After doing that, on my bust point, or let me say my chest line, on this part, I'm going to replace the inches that the dart took in. So for my case, it's 2.25. So I'm just replacing this, because after we stitch this top part, our top will be smaller, so I just have to add that in. And moving forward to my underbust, I'm marking my underbust circumference divided by 4. Then I'll just be replacing this whatever the dart took in. I think it's 1.5 inch for my case. So I'm just going to replace that on this my underbust point. Then I'll remember, yeah, so that's the point that I replaced. I'll also remember to add 1.5 inch seam allowance or sewing allowance, whatever you want to call that. On my waistline, I'm marking my waist circumference divided by 4. Then I'm replacing this 1 inch that the dart took in, and as usual, I'm adding in 1.5 inch sewing allowance or seam allowance. Then I'll just be connecting these outer points like this. At this point, I decided to add my seam allowance at the bottom of this pattern, and I'm working with 1.5 inch, but I don't think that's really necessary, because this thing is like a bralette. So if you want, don't add this allowance, but for me, I just wanted to add it. Yes, I think I just love allowances, so that's why I added it. Anyway, it's not necessary, guys. You don't necessarily have to add that. This is just me marking my pattern instructions for me to remember that this is the center front line on fold, and this is the side part of the front. The side that we don't necessarily need, but we need it because of the straps, because we need to know the length of the straps. Now on this very top part of this block, I'm going to indicate where I want my first strap to be. You see, the good thing about pattern drafting is you just do what you feel like, and you analyze if it will work out or not, and you can adjust everything and all that. So pattern drafting it's good. It is good. Okay, so I just decided that I'll be giving my straps a spacing of 2 inches. So that was just 2 inches that I marked. Then I'm drawing another line, that another sign, another something that will show me this is where your strap is supposed to be. So these 2 lines that I'm drawing are just they'll just be guiding me. They're just guidelines to show me where the straps will be and how long these straps will be. So this part is really, it's important. Let me say it is important, because it is important. You need to know how long your straps are supposed to be. Okay, so I'm just numbering this from the top to know that's the first strap. That's the first strap. Then this is the strap number 2 and strap number 3 and strap number 4. Yeah, so I'm just zigzagging inside in between to help me know that these are the straps. Yeah, so I'm just indicating here that we don't need this part. So while cutting, I'm just going to cut it off, because I don't need this. I did not need it at all. So this is how my front pattern is looking. Your pattern should be looking like this too. Okay? Yeah. Now, because I'll be cutting out this part that I've just shaded, that I shed, I'm just indicating some notches that will help me know that this is where you're going to attach your straps. Mtonyi. Mtonyi, this is where your straps should be attached. So I'm just marking, I'll be notching this on the fabric. Okay? We are now going to work on our back pattern. So I'm going to extend these lines. I'm going to extend this my chest line in dotted. Then I'll just extend the bust point, under bust point, and the waistline. As you can see, I also went ahead to add in my seam allowance at the bottom. So at the very top line, I'm marking my shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus half an inch seam allowance. Then I'm marking the same point here on my chest line. The shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus half an inch seam allowance. Then I'll just be connecting these 2 points to form a straight line that will act as my armhole depth. Now from the top, as usual, I'm slanting by 1 inch, and on my neckline I'm just marking in my neckline, which is 3 inches wide and 1 inch deep, which is a standard neckline for the back. Then I'll just connect this with a curve. You are then going to slant this your shoulder, this your back shoulder, like this. Okay, yeah. So once that is done, I'm getting the midpoint of this my armhole depth. At this point, I'm marking my bust circumference divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch seam allowance. I'm marking this on my chest line so that I can get the point on which this my armhole depth is going to stop. Okay, so this is the back armhole. We don't normally go in like we did on the front one, so this is how it is done. Although this part, it's totally not necessary. I just want you to understand, because if you see that this is a back bodice, that's when you will understand well what we are drafting. Okay, that is if you are a beginner. Now I'm marking my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 4 on all these lines, on the bust point and a bust point and on the waistline. Then I'll just join this with a straight line all through. Now this is the line on which I'll be creating my back dart. Now from the chest line, come down by 1 inch. When I came down by 1 inch, I stopped at the bust point. That was where my 1 inch was. And on my waistline, I'm going to go out by half an inch on both sides of the dart. I'm then going to connect the 3 points as shown on the pattern. I'm now marking my under bust circumference divided by 4. I'm marking it here. Then I'm just going to replace the half inch that the dart took in, like so. Then I'm going to add my 1.5 inch sewing allowance, just like I did on the front pattern. Now moving down to the waistline, I'm marking my waist circumference divided by 4. Then I'll be adding the 1 inch that the dart took in here. I'm adding it here, and finally I'm adding my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. The next thing you want to do is to connect this outer points with your straight ruler like this. And if you added allowance at the bottom like me, just extend your darts, your back dart and the front dart. Extend it to the end now, to the end of your block, the way you see me doing. Yeah, so this is how far we are. We are almost done actually. Now on this, my back borders or my back block, I don't necessarily need this center back part of this back borders. I don't necessarily need it because at the back I decided that I'll be using straps. I'll be using some crisscross, hey English, crisscross straps at the back. Okay, so I just want the wider part of my back to be open, but I'll only be needing my side back. Yeah. Now from the chest line I came down by 1 inch and connected this to the armhole. Yeah, because I just want my back to be curvy at the top, like you get, to be somewhat curvy at the top. That's why I'm just drawing in my curve right here. I'm just marking in my scissors just to help you know where I'm going to cut this pattern through. So this is where I'll be cutting my pattern, where you've seen this scissors, this makasi is passing. So that's where I'll be cutting. I'll only be using this part of the back. Now I'm going to cut this through. Yeah, because that's what we're left with. Then I'll show you how I'm putting together the upper part, my number 1 and my number 1B. I'll show you that just now. It's so special, what feels when I'm with you. You got me doing things I never thought I'd do. Just so you know, ain't never let you go. You're mine, oh, just so you know, you're mine for sure. Yeah, you're mine for sure. When I was done cutting all through, I grabbed a fresh pattern paper because you know we have to make this top part to be one. We are joining them, okay? We are joining them to form one pattern. So using my glue stick, I'm just going to stick these both patterns down on a fresh pattern paper just to help me get one piece, one pattern, okay? Now, after working on this top piece of the cup, this is how my patterns are looking. So this number 2, I'm just indicating it that it should be facing the center front line. You've seen that arrow. Then number 3, the arrow is pointing the side front. So with these arrows and the initials there, I know you're not going to mess, you're not going to mix up your patterns, okay? Then here is the side front that we don't necessarily need, but we have it because we need to know the length of our straps, okay? So we don't need the pattern, we basically need to know the length of our straps. So this is basically it. Let's meet in the sewing version. Bye for now.